Okay, and we will start with our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. First, I want to start with just personal things since I shared this with you. My son, thank God, is feeling better. He was able to drive to Jerusalem to teach a class, for which we are very grateful. And the doctor gave him permission to fly, which means that, God willing, they'll be able to come to Denver next month. From today, that they'll be able to come and be with us for the summer. So we're really, really grateful. Still no change on his hearing, so he can't hear in one ear, and the dizziness is better, and the doctor said it might take up to a year for it to resolve, and his hearing still could come back. There's like a 3-month window then that people have seen it come back. If it goes beyond that, unlikely, but we're only at month 1, so we still have some more time. So we are still davening for all of that. And for everybody who needs refuah should have that. And I also want to wish Darlene Schwartz a mazel tov on the birth of her new granddaughter. And anybody else have any things to say? Everyone should have mazel and bracha and hatzlacha with everything and all of your family as well. Okay, this week is Parsha Shalach. Parsha Shalach, otherwise known as Shalach Lecha, which means send for yourself. And it is the command that God gives to Moshe to send for yourself spies into the land of Israel. Now, the word for spy it's called the meraglim. And we're going to come back and talk about the significance of that word. Interestingly, that word is never used in the Parsha. They are never called that. The words that are used is like latour, just like the English word to tour the land. So we have to back up and ask, what was the reason for sending somebody in? Why did Moshe want to do this? So was it to see like whether they should go into the land of Israel or not? And the answer is, of course not. That's the whole point of the Exodus from Egypt. That's the whole point of the Jewish people. That was the promise to Abraham, to Yitzchak and Yaakov. The land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. That's where you're going. When we left Israel and had to go to Egypt for 210 years, the whole idea was to get out of Egypt, leave Egypt, get the Torah, and go back to the land of Israel. So there was not a question of if we're going in. That was not the question on the table. So if that wasn't the question on the table, then what was the purpose? If you're going to scout something out, let's say you're looking for a new community to live in. So you go to places to see if you want to go, not, that's the question that we're trying to answer. So the question is, what was this? So I heard this was a beautiful shiur, a beautiful class from a woman, Rebbetzin Amit Yagubi. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It was on Torah Anytime. Anyone who wants to listen to the whole class in full, it was really beautiful. And I want to share her message today with myself and with all of you. So the question was, what was happening? So if you think about it, people don't like change, just in general. Now there's some people like, oh yes, I do like change, and change my hair, change my apartment, change my this. It's like, but most people are like, major change, not really looking forward to it. It says, even according to the Midrash, we learned, it says that even our soul doesn't want to come into this world. And it kind of protests and protests and protests. And God's like, you're coming into the world. And then the baby's in the womb and the baby wants to stay there and doesn't really want to come out. And then protest. You're born, here you are. And then when we leave this world, we don't want to leave this world either. It's like, no, I want to stay alive. I want to stay here. So we're not so good necessarily in the transition. So if you are a good parent or a good teacher or a good whatever, you have found out, or even for yourself, that you need to do something to help transition at major moments, at major points of time when you're going from one thing to the next, especially when there is the unknown. That's the part we don't like. It's not that it's change, it's unknown. From known to unknown is a big challenge. Moshe, coming from a family of midwives, remember his mother's a midwife, his sister's a midwife, says, what does a midwife do? She's a transition specialist. She helps the mother go through the process of birth. The midwife doesn't go there to say, well, should you have this baby or shouldn't you have this baby? It's like, no, you're having this baby. The question is, can I make you more comfortable? Can I do something, can I do pressure points on your back? Can I mop your brow? Can I give you ice cube chips? I mean, it's something to make it more comfortable, but it's not, are you having the baby or not? So the task of what we're going to call them, the Meraglim, the spies, was not to go to see if they should go in or not. The task was they were supposed to come back with something to be able to tell the people to help them with the transition. What would help them? So it's very interesting. You have to ask the question. We know Moshe very badly wanted to go into the land of Israel, and we all feel really bad when God tells him you're not going in. Did you ever think about it? Why do you want to go in so badly? He had a very close connection with God in the desert. Why do you want to go in? So, like, did he want to go for the shawarma? Did he want to go for the iced coffee? That's why I go, but that's like people on a higher level. That's not why they go. It's like the whole point of the land of Israel is to be in a place that God has chosen to be especially suited for the holy relationship between the Jewish people and God and the world. That's our point of connection. It is a spiritual place. So then why doesn't Moshe send the spies in and say, go see how spiritual it is? Come back and tell me that you were on you had a spiritual high. Go tell me that, you felt God's presence there, blowing through the wind. It's like, he doesn't tell them that. He wants to do something to make it palatable for the people. What would make it palatable? Go check out the physicality of it, so that they know it's going to be a good place to go. And he specifically tells the spies what they are supposed to do. And if you are on page 801, which is chapter 13, the end of verse 20, is asking, how is the land? Is it fertile? Is it lean? Are there trees in it or not? You shall strengthen yourselves and take from the fruit of the land. The days were the season of the first ripe grapes. It's like, what were they supposed to bring back? Is that a spiritual report? It's like, bring back the shawarma. Okay, it's like, bring back the grapes so the fruit, so people can see how sweet it is. How sweet it is. So it's interesting when we make a blessing after we've eaten food in Denver, Colorado, in Arizona, in California, in New Jersey, wherever we are, when we eat food that has one of the species from the land of Israel mentioned in it. So you have something that's made out of wheat, not a hamotzi, but made out of wheat, like cookies, crackers, cake, all those yummy things, or you have grapes, figs, pomegranates, wine, any of those things. We make a special blessing about the land of Israel. And we talk about how we want to go back. And we talk about how we want to go to the Beit HaMikdash, but what do we want to do? It specifically says we want to eat the fruit. We want to eat the fruit and enjoy it. It's like, that's spiritual? It's like, yes, because the message is that a spiritual life and a life of Torah is not a life of deprivation. It's not a life of woe is me. It's hard to be Jewish. It's so hard. Everything's so expensive. It's pleasurable. And human beings, as physical beings, we relate to pleasure through our senses, and specifically food. It's like, when Jewish people travel around the country or around the world, one of the first things, if you're with friends, like, so where did you eat? Where did you eat? Where were the kosher restaurants? Jewish people pack food wherever they go. They have to have special Jewish luggage that is, leak proof, because we're always schlepping food with us, because the food is the definition of how we experience the physical pleasure. You're going to love it there. Moshe doesn't give the people a big speech. Oh, it's so amazing. God is going to be with us. It's like, go bring back some fruit. Bring that back. If somebody goes to a conference, what do you bring back? The kids, you bring back something from the kids. You don't bring them back a booklet with all of the notes from the sessions you went to on whatever your professional conference is all about. You bring them back swag. Like, what are you going to bring them that's going to say, oh, that was fun? So this was like, this land is going to be amazing. And it's going to be sweet. And I want you to feel good about it. I want you to be able to transition. So we do this again with the child. We want them to think about what we do with a 3-year-old. The 3-year-old little boy who's going to start his education, his Jewish education, when he gets his first haircut. What do? We put honey on the Hebrew letters and lick it off. It's like, it's sweet. And our blessing in the morning that we say to God, Va'arevna, sweeten the words of Torah in my mouth. If it's not sweet, we're doing something wrong. We missed the point. It is sweet. It is beautiful. It's a pleasure. It's a privilege. It's amazing. And Moshe wanted, that's what those men were chosen to do. So when they come back and say, oh yeah, there's, the fruit is amazing, but the awful but, it's too big, the people are too strong, it's fortified, we can't do it. It's like off task. That was not your job. That was not your job. The job was to come back with the swag from the land of Israel so the Jewish people will feel more confident going into the land. So they become the Chet HaMeraglim. They become the sin of those spies, the sin of the spies for which we are still paying the price. So the Midrash says, that God says, and then the Jewish people start crying, we're not going to the land. What's Moses doing? He's trying to kill us. And God's like, you've got it all wrong. I'm handing you the land basically on a silver platter, and you're sobbing over this. And he says, I'll give you something to cry for. Now, this is not a exasperated parent who's like, if you don't stop crying, I'm going to really give you something to cry about. It's not vindictive. It is, if you're crying when I give it to you on a silver platter, then there's not going to be another way for me to give it to you unless you cry over it and you get to a place where you crave it and want it and miss it and long for it, and where you are feeling that kind of the tears of longing. If you're going to be crying over this misplaced perception of the land, then it's going to have to wait until you really want it. And when you really want it that way, then you'll value it. It's like giving anybody anything. I mean, I don't know, when you were growing up, when I was growing up, I wanted to go to camp. I had to work for, I don't remember how much I paid for, but I paid for some amount of it, of the Girl Scout camp or the whatever, so that I would appreciate it. Thankfully, we didn't have a lot of resources, but I wasn't footing the whole bill. It was just, unless you are invested in it, you're not going to appreciate it. So you're going to have to go through that process. If you couldn't go through the silver platter process, you're going to have to go through the other process. And that was the consequence. And here we are with our thousands of years of history. Why do you think we had the joy? We just celebrated recently Yom Yerushalayim, when Jerusalem is in our hands. Har Habayit b'yadenu. It's in our hands. What we did with afterwards was a huge mistake, but it was in our hands. Why was everyone so elated? It was rubble. And yet we were so elated because we had longed for it. And longing creates an appreciation. It's like how we feel now, like our women's trip going to Israel. We've had to postpone our trip 3 times. Before you think, oh, I'll go to Israel, like when I want, when it works out. Yeah. Oh, no, not now. I'll go later. And now everybody's like, the flights, the prices, the tickets are skyrocketing in price because the pent up demand to go. Well, when you can't go, then you want it. And that's the scenario that we're in. You can't go, you're going to have to want it. You got to want it. And then you'll be able to go. So these were the Meraglim. They misunderstood and they went off track. So the idea of a Meragel, which is a spy, but it's really more like a scout. A Meragel is a scout. It comes from the word regel, which means leg. Okay, your regel, and it's related to the Shalosh Regalim, the 3 pilgrimage festivals where we go on foot to go up to Jerusalem. So, and the English word regular comes from the Hebrew ragil, which means ordinary. That's like how you do it. So if you order pizza ragil in Israel, that's plain cheese. That's just regular pizza, but it comes from something that you do on a habitual basis. Miragel. So the question is that we're supposed to ask ourselves, to what have we accustomed ourselves to? What is ragil for us? Because that tells us how we are walking, how our pilgrimage is going in this world. Are we a miragel kadosh? Are we a holy scout looking for the good? Or are we a Meragel, the Chet HaMeraglim, are we a scout that is looking for the bad and how to interpret things negatively? Now, I'm not talking about being oblivious to dangers and concerns that we can't say like, oh, this is just fine. just as an aside, when we were, I may have shared this with you, that when we were in New York, and my granddaughter said, like one night, Omi, let's go stargazing. Did I tell you about this? Let's go stargazing. Stargazing in Manhattan. It's not necessarily a thing, since there's so much light. But we were walking, went outside and we were walking, and in Manhattan, there's always people out. So I felt totally fine. And we're walking, and she found this little plaza that was recessed. And in the recess, it's much darker, a little darker. And between the two buildings, we actually saw Venus. We saw no stars, but Venus was very bright, so we saw Venus. So we came back and told my daughter and son-in-law, Laura took me to this plaza, and we saw, and my son-in-law, he's born and bred New Yorker, so he's not like a timid person. He goes, where were you? So he goes, that's not really a place to go at night. Sitting there during the day is fine with your coffee or your lunch or whatever, but that's not really a place to go tonight, because that same, he didn't say this, that same darkness that allowed you to see Venus was the same darkness that people are doing things that you don't really want to be around. Like, oh, so we're not talking about to be oblivious to things that are a true danger and that you should be paying attention to. We're talking about general negativity or positivity, and what do we do with it? So this idea of what kind of miragel are we? We want to be a miragel kadosh, which means a holy scout, and that our souls were sent into this world, and we were put into the situations that we are in our lives to scout out the good and to scout out the potential for spiritual connection. So all the things that the spies saw had a positive interpretation. The fact that the people living there were so strong meant that the land was good. The people weren't starving to death. They saw the land, it had trees, it was strong. And they said, it's a land flowing with milk and honey. This is a great place. And they should have understood that everything was good about that the reason people were living there who were so strong is because the land was so good. If you go someplace and there's nothing, then you might have a little harder time coming up actually with a better interpretation. So that has a good interpretation too. It's like, great, it's totally empty. There are no obstacles here. So the choice is always, what kind of a scout are we going to be? So this is pointed out by Amit Yagubi, and she was quoting someone else, but I have to say I did not catch it. It says, if you take the word miragel kadosh, which means a holy scout, okay, a holy scout. We're not going to use the word spy because that has really a negative connotation, but a holy scout. That the word miragel has a gematria, a numerical equivalent of 273. And the word kadosh has a gematria of 410. You put that together and you get 683. 683 is a miragel kadosh. So what are we looking for? So it's very interesting. There is a specific valuable jewelry item, which I'm actually wearing right here, a pearl. The word for pearl in Hebrew is margalit, which is really interesting. And what's interesting is the word margalit has the same gematria as a miragel kadosh. A pearl has the gematria of 683. It's the same thing as a miragel kadosh. A holy scout and a pearl are the same. So we can think about that. It's like, first of all, there's another Hebrew word, a contemporary Hebrew word, which is margalot. Instead of margalit, margalot, which means the bottom, the foot, like down at the bottom. It's like, where are pearls found? Where are pearls found? The bottom of the ocean, the bottom of the sea. And not only that, what do you have to do to get it? So you open up like this most unsuspecting thing, oyster thing, like somebody was obviously looking for food, right? And they were looking for food and they opened up the oyster, and instead it's like, whoa, there's a pearl in there. That's amazing. Well, how are pearls formed? It's like pearls are formed by definition. Dale, go ahead and unmute. I hear you saying something. I see you saying something.
Oh, I think they're by layers of sand that keep, accumulating inside the shell.
Right, and it's from an irritant. It's actually the oyster's defense mechanism of like how to get rid of it. It's kind of like I hate to say it's like mucus, you know, like it's like
Right.
it's like trying to do something to have it not bother the oyster. And so all the stuff comes around it. So it comes from an irritant. It comes from an irritant. It comes from a negative thing. And out of this negativity comes a margalit. It's like, that's what we're looking for. So go out and buy yourself a pearl necklace, pearl earrings, pearl ring. And that is our watchword. It's like, I want to be a Miragel Kadosh. I want to be a holy scout in this world. And that doesn't just mean looking for all the things that are obviously good, that are obviously pleasurable. This isn't like something that's right out in the open. This is going to be something that's going to take some work. I need to look for it like in the bottom, at the bottom of the ocean, inside of an oyster. And the way it got formed was through something annoying and irritating and bothersome. And that's where the margalit is being formed. And the more bothersome, the bigger the margalit. So it's like, oh, okay. So this is what we're trying to, would you say clearly, is it a miragel kadosh? Yes, miragel kadosh. Mem resh gimel lamed, that's the noun form. Kadosh kuf dalid vav shin. Miragel kadosh. The plural is miraglim. Miragel kadosh. Dale, yes, unmute.
It's interesting that you're teaching us about this now in June because pearl is the stone for the month of June.
It is? That's so cool.
That's my birthday, so I have lots of pearls. And so, yeah. So
all right. I love it.
In June. Thank you.
I love it. And we are also reading the Parsha of Shalach during the month of, that we're still in, the month of Sivan. And the month of Sivan, the spiritual quality for the month of Sivan is walking. That's what it is. It's walking and how you go. So in Sefer Yetzirah, it lays out that every month has a different quality to it, a spiritual quality, and this is the quality of action in the form of walking. And we talk about that something that is a habitual is hergel. That means that it is something that you do all the time. And that can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing, but it needs to be a question thing. It's like, where am I walking? How am I, what direction am I going? And am I a miragel kadosh? Am I a holy scout who's looking for the margalit, who is looking for the pearl, who's looking for the potential and possibility that something irritating, annoying, negative, bad, and bothersome can actually be turned into something quite valuable that people will pay lots of money for. And it's just a very beautiful thing. And now to know that for the month of June, that's the stone for the month of June is great. So now we have a whole new understanding. And again, going back to the gematrias are the same, 683 for both of them. And when our souls are sent into this world, we're told to be a miragel kadosh, be a holy scout. Look for the things that are good, turn the things that are bothersome into things that are good and valuable. And it's all coming from the same place. It's all coming from the same place, which is it's all coming from Hashem to help us grow. It's all coming to help us grow. So again, go shopping, even if you're not a June birthday, buy yourself some pearls, preferably something you can look at to remind yourself of what you want to do and what you want to be. And if you can't afford the real ones, get a fake one and pretend. And you can do it, My granddaughter has like pretend pearl earrings. She goes, look at my pearls. And it's like, whatever, they're plastic. But anyway, so if it gives you even just the visual reminder, but if you can afford the real ones, get yourself a present for Rosh Chodesh and do yourself a favor. Okay. What else is in this Parsha that helps us understand this message and reinforces it? Is the end of the Parsha, which is it has the paragraph about the commandment about tzitzit. It has the commandment about tzitzit, and the other things in this Parsha is the commandment about taking challah. So what we call challah, we just call it challah, but the challah is actually the part that is removed from the dough that was given to the Kohanim when the temple stood, and now is burned until we have the third Beit HaMikdash rebuilt, and then it will go back to the Kohanim. But when we think about just more significantly about the nature of bread, and the nature of bread, which represents our approach to life. If you think about the ingredients for bread, and you can go to some beautiful challah baking classes where they not only teach you how to make the challah, but talk about the spiritual meaning of each of the ingredients. But even to back up from that is the idea that challah has ingredients that on their own are not doing really anything for us. I don't know when the last time was you sat down to a bowl of flour, probably not recently, and you sat down to a bunch of just eggs, maybe, okay, you can cook those, they can turn into something. A cup of oil, just a cup of sugar, and yeast actually tastes really yucky by itself. If you ever accidentally, eat that, it's very bitter. And some salt, like who needs that? And you put all this stuff together and you knead it together. That's great. That you knead it all together, and then you furthermore you braid it. And that's what we're going to talk about as well. It says that our approach to our life says when we are going through challenges, a really good thing to do is to make challah, because we talk to it. So if you've ever read the book about Henny Machlis of blessed memory, who was an amazing woman, she and her husband hosted hundreds of people every single week in their home until she died young of cancer. But she was an incredible person. Sarah Yocheved Riegler wrote a book about her, and I don't remember exactly the name is. If you remember it, somebody can write it in. It's a great book, and it talks about her, but she talks about that when she prepared food, she prepared challah, she talked to her food, especially to her challah. And we have the custom that when you are kneading the dough, even if it's in a bread machine, you can talk to it while your machine is kneading it, to talk to it for blessings and prayers, for strength for yourself, for other people who need help. It's like we often have things, I'll get a text saying, we're all davening for somebody. Thank you very much, Anne. Emunah with love and chicken soup. Emunah with love and chicken soup. It's a great book. You would have to think like this person didn't really live, but she just passed away a few years ago, and her story is amazing. I know her son-in-law came and spoke to us on one of the women's trips. Just an amazing family. And they have carried on her tradition of inviting people. And I don't mean like inviting people like your nearest and dearest friends. I mean people like off the street people, like whoever needs something at any time just comes. And they make tons of food every single week and host Shabbos for people, random people. It's a really amazing chesed. She talks to her food. She talked to her food, especially to her bread, because what we're asking is like Hashem, and I have to say, every time I make challah, I'm always surprised it turns out, especially when you're first mixing it. It's like, this doesn't really look like it's going to turn into anything. Like, how many times in our life do we say, this doesn't really look like it's going to turn into anything, and anything it looks like it's going to turn into doesn't look like it's going to be good. It looks like it's going to be a problem. It's like, just knead it and say, Hashem, just knead me. Now, like Knead, knead me and knead this situation and make it like all come together. Make it come together and to create something yummy and nutritious and beautiful. I mean, isn't it always nice? It's the closest I come to doing a magic trick is, when taking off the challah cover and revealing the challahs that are underneath. That's as close as I get to a magic trick. And I was like, oh, like everyone is like, they're always so beautiful. Why does everyone like it so much? They don't say that over a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's just bread. But what goes into the making of challah with kavanah, with intention and focus, is let this be symbolic of my life. Just bring everything together. The salt, which, salt is kind of bitter, even with the tears, the things that are uncomfortable, like every life needs a little bit of that. The salt actually helps the challah be flavorful. It's like the maror on the plate, on the Seder plate. It helps, even though you wouldn't want a whole diet of it. But when it's mixed with everything else, then we can say, Hashem, just make it like this. And then we even take it, you can watch videos on how to do it with 3 strands, 4 strands, 6 strands, 12 strands. And that also is a way to like make a tapestry of this. How does this all fit together? It all gets tied together, braided together until it is something that is beautiful. And that's our challah. It says, this is to be a miragel kadosh, to say something like, oh my God, I've got so many ingredients in my life. Either they don't seem like they go together, it's oil and water, or it seems like it doesn't really very tasty, or it seems like it's very bitter. But when I put it all together, it's actually a beautiful life. And with that perspective of having a challah mentality towards my life, it's like it's all going into the challah. it can bake up into something beautiful, in fact. So that is the mitzvah of taking challah, of making challah, of looking at our life to be a miragel kadosh. Thoughts or questions about challah, that perspective? If you need a good recipe, I've got one for high altitudes. Anything, Darlene?
No, it just is how beautiful. I can relate to, just making challah. Sometimes there's weeks that you just don't have time or whatever, and you buy it and you actually don't appreciate it, even if it's a very tasty challah, just the effort that goes into it. And you're right, seeing that it works, and it's the effort. And I guess that's true with, just an analogy for anything, what you put into it.
That's right. And if you, and great, very good. And if you think about it too, if you were the dough, if we want to anthropomorphize the dough, how is the dough experiencing the kneading process? Maybe not so good. It's kind of like because when I say punch it down, it's like, that's good for it. It's like, I feel like a bit of bread being kneaded for challah. It's like, maybe you are. In fact, Adam, the first man, is called God's challah. He was like God's first challah, and that God made him like challah. He took the dirt, added the water, kneaded him, and made him. So for this is for, in a marriage situation, I'd say you could extend to a son or something else. It says, but specifically around marriage, there's the idea that when a woman makes challah, she is creating her husband, and every week she is recreating him. And this isn't necessarily something you share with him. Like, I just remade you this week, so I hope it's a better version. But there is an idea of that she makes her husband, and that this process of kneading the dough is that she is recreating him in her image with her input and her influence. So just something to keep in mind. It's a very interesting, beautiful idea. But the idea anyway that humanity is God's challah. That humanity is God's challah, and our lives are our challah. So while we make challah for Shabbos at the end of the week and celebrating what, that Hashem created the world, we're doing it. So on whatever level, we can say, I'm a challah in process. My challah needs to rise a little bit more, needs a little bit more kneading, a little bit more whatever, something. That just having that as a metaphor for how we experience all the disparate parts of our lives, and trying to put it together so we come up with something yummy and delicious and can see how each ingredient does fit in and can fit in. So that is the challah connection. Then we have the tzitzit. The tzitzit, which of course is a mitzvah for the men to have. The challah specifically is on women, even though a man is obligated to take challah. If he doesn't have a girl 12 years age older to do it, he is obligated to do the mitzvah of taking the challah, but it's specifically a mitzvah connected to women, having that perspective of how to kind of put this all together. The men have tzitzit, and it's supposed to be the antidote to the miraglim, to the mistake of the miraglim. So as we said, that the word that is used in the Torah is that they were latur. They were supposed to tour the land and come back with the fruit. So at the end, becomes the third paragraph of the Shema that we recite twice a day, every single day. And it says that the man is supposed to look at the patil techelet, the thread of blue, v'lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem. Don't go touring after your hearts and your eyes that take you off track of how to appropriately see the world. So that is their antidote. Now notice, we make challah like once a week or whatever it is, or even if someone's making bread. A man wears tzitzit during all day, during his whole waking life, the under tzitzit. I'm not talking about the talit that one wears for prayer, but the tzitzit that are worn under a shirt. That is worn as soon as when you get up and you get dressed, you put that on, you take it off when you are getting undressed. That a man needs this reminder. I won't say 24/7, I'll say 12/7, that he needs it for his whole waking hours in order to be a miragel kadosh, Those strings serve as a reminder, just as we say, tie a string around your finger to remember something. What am I trying to remember? I'm trying to remember to be a miragel kadosh, to be a holy scout and to see the physical world and all the pleasures we talked about, that Moshe wanted everybody to have the pleasure. There was another danger that could have happened from the spies. It could have come back and with the grapes, and they could have said, yay, this is great. We can go in, we can have all these grapes, we can make wine, we can get drunk, we can party and have a great time. That would have been a mistake also. That also would have been a mistake, is to get caught up into the part that was supposed to sweeten the message, to get caught up in the sweetness itself and kind of forget the whole main idea. So both things are a danger. Both of those sides, to not see it at all and to see it for only as the main idea instead of the spice. That's the thing that makes it sweet. So we see for our holidays where food, there's the joke, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. That's kind of like considered the summary of all Jewish holidays. And then everyone laughs, except it's a little true. Food plays a huge role in our celebration of spiritual events. When there's a bris, we eat. Bar mitzvah, we eat. A wedding, we eat. And it's called a seudat mitzvah. This is not just like, oh, we have to feed the guests. This is part of the simcha, is the eating. To tie it together. Having the right balance of what's the main idea. Now, people might not always have the main idea. I remember when I was teaching bar and bat mitzvah students, I always had the best students. And someone said, how'd you get all the good? You must be such a good teacher. You got all the good students. And oh, no, your kids always do really well. I said, no, I had the families who lined up the teacher before the caterer. That's who I had. But that's a different family. It's like, you do need a caterer and you do need your whatever but if that's the main thing and you thought that was the main thing, then you missed it. But if you lined up the teacher first and then you call the caterer, that's the right order and that's the right perspective. And then the whole thing can be beautiful. So it's not either or, it's both, but which takes precedence. So we find, which holiday has the most focus on food is actually Shavuot. Shavuot is meant to be the thing where you have the most amount of food and the most delicacies. In fact, we know that there's the tradition to have, usually for Jewish holidays, unless you're a vegetarian or whatever, most people have fleishiks. They just do. Chicken, roast, whatever it is, it's meat and wine. But on Shavuot, it's like, no, dairy and meat, not at the same meal. You have a dairy meal, you have a meat meal, you do it all. And people are always saying, that's the conversation. I mean, this is such a lofty conversation. This is the conversation in the days when we were in synagogue and people are talking after services the week before Shavuos. So what are you having for Shavuos? Are you having a dairy meal for Erev Shavuos? Are you going to have it for lunch first day? Are you going to wait till second day? What are you doing Erev second night? And you'd think the whole thing, instead of never mind standing at Sinai, it's like, what are we cooking and what are we eating? And says, that's good. Because the holiday is about receiving the Torah. Receiving the Torah is the most elevated, lofty, out of this world experience that we could possibly have. Standing at Sinai was a completely overwhelming experience. But that's not the whole experience. The message is Torah is for people who are alive and living in this world, and it's sweet and it's beneficial and it's yummy and it's delicious and you're going to have such a happy life. How do I convey that to you in people terms? Eat, drink, and be merry. Enjoy yourselves. That's the message. So Shavuot actually has the most emphasis on food of all of the holidays. Because you think it's like, there isn't even anything. What's Shavuot? What do we do on Shavuot? People thought we only ended up with the dairy things because we didn't have anything else to do. This is because it's so ethereal. It's so abstract. It's so above and beyond. It's so possibly overwhelming. Because we know the Jewish people, when they stood at Sinai, that they were so overwhelmed by the experiences, their neshamas, that God's presence was so close that their neshamas just kind of like went out of them to reattach to God. And God had to put them back into them and say, no. The goal is not to leave this world. The goal is to be in this world. And here's some food. Eat and be in this world. So that's what Shavuot is supposed to be. But we need to know that what it's really about is being fully engaged in this world. So when Moshe says to the Meraglim, to the scouts, go and bring back the fruit. Show the Jewish people how sweet it is to be in the land of Israel. And some of it's going to be obvious, like the grapes. They were so huge, they had to be carried back on poles. They were gigantic. And some of it's going to be like pearls. Some of it's going to be like, you're seriously looking at this? And we have to remember also that at the time when the Jewish people went into the land of Israel, it wasn't barren. There were people living there. It was a land flowing with milk and honey. It was very lush. It was not a deserted place. That came after the Jews left. God promised the Jewish people, if you're not there, after we were there the first time, if you're not there, the land will not give its fruit to anybody else. It will only give its fruit to you. And when you come back, the land will flourish. And so it was desolate. But at the time, it was very rich and it was beautiful, but it was also scary. And how much of the fear was real and how much of it was just the fear of the unknown, where, we magnify things, our worries and concerns always magnify themselves at night. My sister-in-law is a pediatrician, and she said the parents always called in the middle of the night with something that was wrong with their kid. And the truth is that the kid had the thing at 10 o'clock in the morning also, but it wasn't so scary at 10 o'clock in the morning. At 2 o'clock in the morning, it's scary. And so they call. So when there's night, when there's uncertainty, when there's darkness, our fears just kind of go up and they expand. So how fierce were these people who were really there? We have to understand actually that they couldn't have been so fierce because they were very well fortified and barricaded. You only fortify and barricade yourself if you're worried. You only worry if you don't think you're actually strong enough. If you have all the locks on your door, it's not because you're strong, it's because you feel weak. So they misinterpreted the whole thing. It's like, no, they're going to be fine. Don't worry about them. But when people are afraid about what could be and what could happen, we conjure up in our minds all sorts of scary things. And we have scary predictions. We blow things out of proportion. We shrink ourselves and we expand the fear. And the spies said that same thing. They said, we're like grasshoppers. Grasshoppers? It doesn't get too much smaller than that. What does that even mean? And they said we were like grasshoppers in their eyes. Nobody bothered them at all. So instead of thinking like, oh my gosh, Hashem is protecting us, we went through there and they didn't even notice our being there. They're like, we're such a nothing, they didn't even see us. It's like, can you not see that this was a positive thing? The 12 foreigners come into the land and you're not spotted at all. And then you're walking off with their fruit. Do you think that wasn't noticeable? This wasn't, like take a little picture with your phone and bring it back for all of us to see. This was like, no, walk out with these huge poles of fruit and bring it back. That was actually risking their lives. They were risking their lives. And yet they misinterpreted the whole thing. So we have to think about that too. All of us are always on the verge of some sort of change. There's always some potential for us to embark and go to the next level in something. And we tell ourselves a lot of stories about what that's going to be and how scary it's going to be and how we can't do it and how fierce the opposition or the obstacles are on the other side. Don't do that. Be a Miragel Kadosh. Be a holy scout. See the things that are obviously the pluses and then look for the Margalit. Look for the pearl. Look for the thing that is challenging, but that can be made into something beautiful. And it might take going down to the bottom of the sea, to the bottom of your foot, where things are not so pretty. Talk about what's the least pretty part of anybody's body, usually, unless you're a foot model. I'm guessing your feet. Okay. Calluses, whatever is like that. You're telling me that the things that are on the very bottom are the things that really could be raised up to the top? It's like, yep. All those things that seem the most negative. So that is what the Jewish people had. So we have the challah and we have the tzitzit for the men to look at. So even though it's the men who wear the tzitzit, we say the paragraph. We still say it. I think that's actually why I'm wearing blue today, is the techelet color. It's not exactly techelet color, the blue color, but it's kind of. Some techelet actually is this color, is the blue. Is that they will look at it and they will remember what you are really doing here. So the word techelet, I love thinking about this every single year, is the same word as tachlit. Something, the tachlis of something is the main idea. As you're going through your life, don't forget the main idea. When we went to New York, I was so excited. We went on Delta. And we landed in the Baruch Hashem, finally at last, the new part of LaGuardia Airport, which if anybody travels to New York, LaGuardia has been under construction, I don't know what, for a century, it seems like. It's like, it is such a mess. It's the old part is so old and so squishy and so unpleasant. And then with the construction, it was like the cabs and this, and you had to take I mean, it's, the only reason we went was because our kids and grandchildren were there. Otherwise, like, I'm not going to LaGuardia. Well, now they have a part that is built. And the new part of LaGuardia is gorgeous. And we didn't even have to go through a time warp where you land in the good part and then you go through a door and then baggage claim is in the old part and you feel like you step back in history like 100 years. Like the whole thing was new. But it was very interesting. When you come to the airport to leave, to fly back to Denver, you feel like you're at Cherry Creek Mall because there are just stores. Some stores are in, like closed areas, and some stores are just out in the open. You don't feel like you're in an airport at all. You feel like you are on a shopping expedition. There's the purses and there's the clothes, there's the jewelry, there's the makeup, you can create a massage. And all of this, they designed this so that you walk through all this, just like they do the cosmetic area at the department stores. You can't get straight to the whatever. You must go through the cosmetics and have people try and hand you things and spray you with stuff in order to get to where you're trying to go. This is very distracting. It's very easy, and our son Benjamin actually one time spoke about this, is to forget why you're there. And say, oh, you know what, I have some time until my flight takes off. I think I'll just stop in, I'll try on this, whatever. I'll look at this jewelry, I'll whatever. Next thing you know, like your flight left because you were so busy shopping. You forgot you were at an airport. You thought you were at a mall. It's like our lives are like that too. You forgot the main idea of why you're there. Don't forget the tachlis. You are there. We are in this world to grow. We are in this world to grow from all of our experiences, pleasant, painful, the whole thing. We are not here to shop. So it's like, yes, you need some things, but if you forget that that's why if you thought that was the main idea, then you're going to miss your flight. Your flight to soar, to go up, to elevate, you're going to miss it. You're going to be in the mall. And it's like, it doesn't mean that you don't need to shop. It's just not the main idea. So don't forget the tachlis. Don't forget the thread of blue. Don't forget why we are here. We are here to be a miragel kadosh. We are here to seek the margalit, to seek the pearls, to find the pearls, to create the pearls, so that we are then, that our shlichut, because that's the word shalach, our shlichut, which means that you are a messenger, that your shlichut, your messengerness, that in this world, that your soul came into this world, because you're not taking this stuff from the mall home anyway, just newsflash to all of us. It's like we are leaving with our spiritual accomplishments. And Hashem, thank God, sweetens the process for us by giving us a beautiful physical world to enjoy in its proper form and its proper context. And that the Torah tells us how to balance our spiritual aspirations with our physical pleasure. And we never separate them. We just have to make sure they're in the right order. With that, we can be Miragel Kadosh. We can wear our pearls. We can enjoy our life. We can celebrate. It's almost Erev Shabbos. And soon, if you walk in a Jewish neighborhood, it's like, how can you tell the people getting ready for Shabbos? Are they davening all day? Are they learning Torah all day? They're cooking. And it's like, it smells like Shabbos. It smells like Shabbos. What's the smell? It's the smell of the physical world being used in its proper way with deep pleasure and appropriate perspective. That's what we want to be. That's who we are. Thoughts, comments, questions, anything, challah recipe ideas, anything you want to know? Yes, Diane, if you want to unmute.
It goes. Thank you for that. It was really quite beautiful. I started baking challah years ago, but I started with the pandemic. And I found it quite rewarding, and I still do. We Zoom with our kids on Friday, and we always show the challahs because all three of them are Jewish educators, and they're all baking challah. But I wanted to say this Parsha, I never had that kind of a reference to. To me, it was about leadership. This Parsha is about leadership, isn't it? Isn't it where the spies come back and Moses, you know, his mantle, God sends it to the 70 people, men, I'm sure. I mean, to me, it's about leadership and what shape leadership took to accomplish what needed to be accomplished. I just love you to say a few words. I have
Sure.
a Zoom up, but I just
sure.
Would love
Thank you. I'm happy to. So the leadership was actually about the spies, their leadership, and how they failed. And the leadership, there were 3 categories of leaders in this story, really. Well, actually 4. There was Moshe's leadership, which was trying to do something to help people transition, which was fine, even though God was like, not my best idea, and he didn't think it was the best idea, but it was a good idea. It was fine. And it wasn't like, fine, do it. It was like, fine, you can do it. This might work. There was the men who were picked were all leaders. They were all spiritual giants. We have to understand that even though things went very south, they, as representative government, representative leadership, they were chosen for their high spiritual levels. That was fine. Joshua, but they failed because they got off track. And there's lots of discussions about what exactly got them off track. Joshua and Caleb were the 2 leaders who came back in the appropriate way. Joshua's leadership was really as a byproduct of him being a protege of Moshe. Moshe changes his name, adds a yud to his name of Hosea and turns him into Yehoshua, actually borrowing the yud from Sarah. When Sarah's name was changed from Sarai to Sarah, the yud is like, what about me? And it's like, don't worry about me, you yud, you're going to get shipped off to somebody who needs you, Yehoshua. So the people were not responsive to Yehoshua's perspective because they're like, you're just like Moshe's person. Like, of course you would say everything is fine. The person who really emerges, and Amit Yagubi really pushes on this a lot as the hero, is Kalev. Kalev is the hero because he did not get a special blessing from Moshe. Only Yehoshua did, because Moshe was concerned about Yehoshua's humility and that he was going to get run over and steamrolled. So he's in good shape. Kalev is the one who pulls himself together. So it says that he started to go off track with the other spies and felt himself turning into a bad Miragel, turning into a bad scout. And so he hightailed it off to Hebron, to the Ma'arat HaMachpelah, to the cave of Machpelah, to daven for himself and connect himself to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah, that he knew he needed strengthening, and that then he is able to withstand. But that's why the people listen to him and not to Josh. I mean, I shouldn't say they listen to him, because in the end they don't, but they at least quiet down. The mob quiets down with Caleb, because according to the Midrash, Caleb says, is this all that Moshe has done to us? And they think that Caleb is going to go into a rant against Moshe, but instead he says, he took us out of Egypt. We got water. We crossed the sea. We fought against Amalek, and we, received the Torah. Do you think somebody who's doing this is doing us ill? So it's because he had wavered and rights himself that he's actually the heroic person in it. He was Miriam's husband. So Miriam's husband was Kalev. Oh. So people thought, just remember in last week's Parsha, Miriam gets in trouble for saying Lashon Hara about Moshe. So that's the other thing, is they thought, this is Moshe's brother-in-law. Brother-in-laws don't necessarily get along. They figured like maybe he is going to like dish it out on Moshe, and like he's going to lead the rebellion. So they shut up. But then he goes on to praise Moshe, and then the people can't hear it. So the leadership of the 10 men, which also tells us about leadership, how important it is. This is from where we get minyan. Minyan comes from 10 men who can either turn things one way or the other. That's what they did. And so minyan is a tikkun, is a repair of these 10 spies. They got it wrong. And so that's why men are supposed, instead of having a Chilul Hashem, a desecration of God's name, a desecration of the land of Israel, when there is a public opportunity to sanctify, 10 men representing those 10 spies have to come together and say, Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach. Blessed is God. So they're reserved for words of public kedusha, required 10 men as a tikkun. Women weren't in that. The women were on the right track from the very beginning. They were not even listening to this garbage. They're like, you're off track. You are off track. Now you think about women, not all women, because not all women give birth, but women go through a process as a gender. They go through a process where things that look really, really bad turn out really, really good. It's called labor and delivery. It's like the most painful process to create something amazing. It's like, and never mind, the painful menstrual cramps. It's like having menstruation is painful, difficult, annoying, and whatever. It's definitely the material for a pearl. But if you don't have that, you're not getting any children. It's like, that is a thing. It's like, that's part of the package. So it's like, we are spiritually wired to recognize that. So the discomfort even of that monthly thing, the discomfort of pregnancy, labor and delivery, it's the only natural process that hurts when it's going well. If your digestion works like that, go see a doctor. If eating goes like that, go see a doctor. If elimination works like that, go see a doctor. But a woman never says, I'm having such pains. Actually, I have a friend who's ready to deliver her first child. And I said, how are you doing? And she said, kvetchy, everything hurts. I said, oh, I remember that stage. It's really uncomfortable. On the other hand, you do have a growing live person inside of you. So it's not exactly surprising that could be uncomfortable. So, and how does that work? So that's our answer to that. It is about leadership. And it talks about also how a few people can create a tipping point for others. And we have to be very careful about what we do. Is that, oh, I only talk to a few people about whatever it is. It's like, we can end up tipping everything.
Thank you.
We will take leadership well. So thank you for your question, Diane. Thank you. Anybody else have anything else to ask or to say at all? Yes, Gabi.
Oh, am I unmuted? I tried.
You are unmuted, yes.
I have something very important to say. Sorry, I was watching my grandkids the last few weeks today. I took off. And I would like to tell everyone that Ellen's special birthday was Sunday, secular, and Monday, Hebrew birthday, where she blessed us all. So let's sing happy birthday, even if it's 3 days later. Like a Polish wedding, we should celebrate at least for a week, especially for someone like Ellen. So
you are so sweet.
English verse. So happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ellen. Happy birthday to you.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies. And as it turns out, this is my birth Parsha, is Parsha Shalach.
Wow.
So it was lined up this year to work out. I'm like, I'm so happy.
That's
because
amazing.
this Parsha really, really speaks to me. And each year I find new meaning in it. And especially around the love of the land of Israel and saying like, the land is good. People, and I have a friend who belongs to a WhatsApp group. No, it's a Facebook group of new Olim, of new immigrants. And she said, there's so much complaining on it, as whether it's about the driver's licenses, about this, that, or the other thing. But Friday is positive day. So there is an administrator of the group, and you can only share things that are positive. And the truth is, she said it's full. It's filled with positive things. It's just that the channel that everybody's on for Sunday through Thursday are all of the gripes and everything that's going wrong. And so it becomes a channel that we tune into, because these things on Friday didn't just materialize out of thin air. They were there also on Monday through Thursday. But once people kind of get themselves into a thing, then they're into a thing. And so I thought that was very funny. It's like you could, for the same money, you could have Monday and Thursday also be, positive days. It's like you get to actually choose this. And so to be the Miragel Kadosh means to really be tuning into the channel. Now, this doesn't mean you don't share your experiences. We have friends who are there who are kind of giving us tips along the way of like, when you do this and you need to go to this office, make sure you have this form and all that, because they won't see you unless you have that. So that's fine. That's fine. That's what I consider constructive help. But when it just becomes like this litany, it's very discouraging. And these are from the people who have made Aliyah. These are not for the people who are like, I don't want to go. These are for the people who are there. So it's like, oh my goodness, we have some work to do. So it's for getting ourselves on the right page. So God willing, thank you everybody for joining me. Have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos and a good Chodesh Tov for next week for the month of Tammuz. As we bless the new month, it should be one. It should come to us for life and health and peace and all sorts of material and spiritual blessings that God is waiting to give to all of us. Have a good Shabbos.
Ellyn, can you put that recipe for challah at the elevation? Because I'd love to have one.
Oh, sure. Do you happen to have the cookbook, Shalom on the Range? It was, you know what, Helene, send me a text and I'll send you a picture of the challah, and then let's talk and I'll tell you the things I do that are just a little different. Okay. It always turns out for me. I'm not a baker, so it's not like, I do all these things. It's like, no, I bake challah and it turns out. So I'd be happy to, but send me a text and I'll send that to you.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Thank you, Ellyn.
Happy birthday.
You're welcome.
Are you wearing pearls?
I am not wearing pearls except for my pearl ring.
Okay. Well, you are our Margot-Lee.
Pearl.
Thank you. My mom gave this to me.
Found you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, everybody, have a good Shabbos.
You
Good
too.
Shabbos.
Does your granddaughter have a name yet, or are they waiting till Shabbos?
Yes. No, today she was named. Beautiful name.
Oh, nice.
Rachel.
What's her name?
Shoshana Rachel.
Oh, beautiful. Mazel tov. Shoshana Rachel.
Yeah, she's beautiful. And Baruch Hashem, you're doing well. Thank you. All very special.
That's great. You know, Gabi's son and daughter-in-law had twins not long ago.
Mazel tov. So boys, girls combination?
Identical boys.
Identical, fraternal?
Identical preemies. They came out at 34 weeks instead of 30, thanks to Hashem. They were willing to wait 4 more weeks in bed rest at the hospital, children, and then NICU another 4 weeks, so 8 weeks hospital, and they are growing nicely, thank God, over 12 and 13 pounds. One is a little bigger, so we're very blessed. And
thank God, you should have a lot of nachas from them. Really
appreciate it. We're very sweet.
All right, ladies, thank you so much. Have a good
Shalom.
Shabbos. Darlene, thank you for staying up so late and joining.
No, my pleasure. Got to see the sun go down, and now it's dark out, but it was beautiful. And I'm glad I'm not on that chat. I don't know, yeah, Baruch Hashem. Okay, whatever. Anyway, bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.